All good.
So once again, comrades, revolutionary greetings to whoever is with us here, those who will be joining us later, and those who will either be listening to this. As I've always said, of course, my name is Comrade Pigino Dimwengu. I am a coach here at this class, Conscious Study Group. And basically what we do is study the philosophy and ideology of Kwame Nkrumah every Thursday. We've been doing this for years and so many years, and we keep on doing it until everybody is ready for it. As they said, we should keep talking until we start acting. So as a class, we do meet every Thursday from 7 p.m. GMT to 9 p.m. GMT. And all we do is read the book Conscientism, and we discuss our thinking and share our thinking with regard to what we've read. In our last classes, of course, we have come to an extent that now we are working on the conceptual tools for logics. Because as it has been mentioned before, of course, Nkrumah introduced us to materialism as a position, philosophical position, as an ideology. And in this ideology, it's based on two things. It's based on science and logics. Now, we have been checking, actually, as a startup, we have been starting with the conceptual tools for logic. Unlike idealism that bases itself on ideas and spirits, of course, materialism bases itself on logics and science. Of course, some will say on rationality and empiricism. So we today actually proceed further with three main conceptual tools under materialism, which is below the core logic as a tool. So logic, we have constructionism, we have reductionism, we have nominalism, and I think we tackled nominalism in our last class, if you can check clearly. We did tackle nominalism in our last class. And therefore today we'll be moving straight to constructionism, where the paragraph starts with constructionism. And we'll have to understand all the difference between constructionism, uh, reductionism, and actually it's called the materialist reductionism. And actually, we'll also be understanding more about, of course, nominalism we've done. So we'll be moving on with that. And without wasting my time, as usual, we do take our reading. And we'll be reading at this particular moment, we'll try to be reading two paragraphs. We connect two paragraphs, or particularly we'll even read the page on the screen until the last paragraph. Then we share our thinking in regards to that, and then we move to the next concept. So welcome once again, Brother P, wherever you are, feel most welcome.
Okay. All right, let's have a look. Okay, you want me to go from that paragraph there in constructionism, yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. In constructionism, one has a picture how those concepts, which are proper to derivative categories, might be formed, using as raw material concepts which are proper to the primary category. In reductionism, one sees how concepts proper to a derivative category can be reduced completely to concepts which are proper to a primary category. When a certain reductionism holds matter to the primary, such a reduction has, for its product, concepts, which are directly applicable only to matter. In nominalism, only concrete existences are held to be primary and real, all other existences being, as it were, surrogates of concrete existences on a higher logical plane. Now, it would of course be a mistake to seek to infer from the foregoing that according to philosophical dialectual materialism, mind is, say, brain, qualities are quantities, energy is mass. These locations would commit what are referred to as category mistakes. Dialectical materialism recognizes differences between mind and brain, between qualities and quantities, between energy. Oh, sorry, I lost my. Let me just zoom in a bit. Where are we? Yeah, you moved the screen and I completely lost where I am, actually. Hang on a second. Yeah, energy and mass. These locutions would commit what are referred to as category mistakes. Dialectical materialism recognizes differences between mind and brain, between qualities and quantities, between energy and mass. It, however, gives a special account of the nature of the differences, both in metaphysics and in theory of knowledge. It does not allow the differences to become fundamental and irreducible.
Thank you. We'll stop there. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so once again, I see Brother Cook and Sister Myra's join us. Comrades, feel most welcome. Of course, as I've said before, we are continuing the class. I know some of you have missed our class, and maybe let me give a recap a bit. So we have been, of course, discussing on materialism, as some of you know, and we arrive at a decision, of course, where Nkrumah arrives at a point where Nkrumah says to us that matter is not the sole reality, but rather it is a primary reality. And from the fact that it's a primary reality, then there are other realities which are either derived from matter. And therefore, spirits, for example, can be a derivative from matter. And then we've gone along to this explanation where, and in that point, then materialism or to consciousness, it doesn't actually refute the existence of spirit or idea, but rather it gives matter as a primary reality, that matter is the origin of the rest of the things. So those other things, either spirits or ideas, can be constructed from matter or can be reduced from matter in categorical conversion, but they all exist from actually considering that matter can be a reality, primary reality. So it doesn't take the position that matter is the sole reality. And that is to mean that matter is the only thing that exists. As others will say, only spirits exist, not idealists. But other consciousness brings more of we call it more of like a center point of these concepts between idealists, between the hardcore materialists and the hardcore idealists. It says that we as consciousness, or from the consciousness position, we recognize and accept the existence of both, either spirits and matter. But in that process, we actually take into consideration that matter is the primary foundation of everything. And anything out of that is actually coming from matter. And as per the explanation of matter, matter is anything that occupies space. Even spirits occupy space, even wind occupies space, and anything else occupies space. So from that, actually matter cannot come from wind. Wind can be a product or part of matter, can be derived from matter. And that is the position we've been coming to. So we move along in our last we discuss actually the basics of the tenets that materialists base their concept in. And we learned that materialists base their concept on logic and science. And therefore, we have been going along now to discuss three key components of logic, the logical aspect of matter. And these three components have been actually constructionism, reductionism, and nominalism. As that it says there, constructionism is an approach that seeks to understand how concepts specific to derivative categories. How can a concept come from the main matter? For example, if you check on the primary categories, like what was shared with us in our last classes, if I can give you a recap, where actually it says that constructionism is the basic category. So how do you derive everything, or how do you see a construction like a building? How can you bring from matter or from logic, you can construct something out of it? Ideas can come out of something. Like if you see maybe something like a woman, or if you see maybe a building, how can you build ideas out of that? How can you build concepts out of that? You see, that's constructionism. Reductionism is how do we relate the end product to its actual origin of where it came from, you see? The nominalism only concentrates on objects as real, while abstract concepts are mere perceptions. So these are part of the concepts that we've been learning in all this process. And as I've said, yes, there are those derivatives. For example, in the main concept, you can see a woman, but you can say she's beautiful. Where is beauty coming from? Beauty is coming from a main concept of that woman you can see as a matter. Then beauty is something you cannot touch, it's either abstract, but you can actually construct it out of matter. And that's where the ideas talk of. Where do ideas come from? from a concept. So that's what we've been discussing, and this is where we are in our reading, and therefore I will not go further actually to indulge you on what has been there before. But now this is part of what we're discussing today. And our reading from today starts from the chapter says in constructionism. So it explains where constructionism is all about, where reductionism is coming from, and then we move ahead to the second paragraph that says now it will be a cause of mistake to seek to infer from the foregoing that according to philosophical dialectical materialism, mind is, say, brain, qualities are quantities, energy is mass. So I will ask us actually to share our thinking in regards to those three paragraphs. What you've done today, you've actually typed the reading of three paragraphs in that page so that we can be able to extensively discuss them than actually moving where somebody can say, I don't have a pass because it's a short sentence or a short paragraph. So we have tied three paragraphs. From that in constructionism to end where you say dialectical materialism recognizes the difference between brain and mind. So feel free actually to share your thinking in regards to that. And as I give you time to read that, I'll ask Brother P, Mr. P, to also share what he thinks in what he has read. Mr. P?
Okay. I'm still trying to get my head around this, to be honest. So at this stage, I'll pass. Hello?
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You also pass.
Pardon?
I can hear you. I have accepted your pass. But then you go to
Yes.
He has just joined us now.
Hello, guys.
Yes, hello.
This is a continuation of what we were talking about last time, which is we can derive whatever product from the primary product, and then it now contrasts that reductionism to constructionism, in which it's sort of, as you mentioned last time, we build a building using different inputs. So we have the bricks, we have the cement, we have the mortar, water, all of those things. They go into to create a final product. That's why we have a constructionism. But in reductionism is different. We are looking at a final product, which is a derivative of what we had as a primary product. But again, he goes on to talk about dialectical materialism, in which he says it recognizes the differences between the mind and the brain. And funny enough, most of us, we struggle with that because we just know that it's the mind. The brain, what does the brain do? The brain does the same thing as what the mind does. But it looks like, according to what dialectical materialism does, it recognizes those two differences and actually treats them the same way as you will treat qualitative and quantitative items. So in quantitative items, you can count things, but with qualitative things, it's about the quality of whatever product we are talking about. And again, in that case, it's the same as mind and brain. There is a bit of that qualitative as well as the quantitative element. The brain on its own is just a brain, but with the mind comes in and plays a different part. But again, he says, both are the metaphysics and the theory of knowledge, and it doesn't really go deeper in sort of distinguishing between the two. It sort of treats them together as just the vehicle of knowledge, both the mind and brain. So it's getting interesting, but we are trying to make sure, he is trying to make sure that we're not too removed from what matter is in the first place, the primary product. And from that primary product, we have derived lots and lots of products that we have in the end. I hope that helped.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Coco. Sister Mayra?
I'm just trying to follow, so I'll pass for this round.
Okay, thank you. I know brother Mr. P also said to pass, but permit me also to engage my mind a bit on the first paragraph as we maybe discussion can come in. As it's saying constructionism, that one has a picture on how those concepts which are proper to derivative categories might be formed using a raw material concept, which are proper to the primary category. For example, when you say we can envision something out of a product or something, we can bring ideas out of maybe like when we say beauty. Out of a lady, we can see so many things. Somebody can see the lady and start seeing a woman, a wife, a beautiful somebody, a rebara. You see? So it's possible that we can derive or we can see a picture that actually comes from that material or that primary category, which is matter for this case. Where in reductionism, one sees how concept proper to a derivative category can be reduced completely to a concept which are proper to primary category. For example, from a mother, from a girl, we can see a mother. We can also be able to trace back that from being a mother back to a lady. We can see that opposite, reducing the point of product directly to where the product came from. So from an old mother or a grandmother, we can trace it back to a young lady. When a certain reduction is in old matter to be primary, such a reduction have for its products concepts which are directly applicable only to matter. In nominalism, only concentrated on existence that are held to be primary and real. All other existence being, as it were, surrogate the concrete existence on a higher logical plane. So nominalism will only concentrate on what is actually visible, or what is actual. For example, nominalism will only concentrate on a young lady there. When you want to construct beauty out of a young lady, nominalism will not take that much consideration on how beauty comes from a lady. But constructionism can construct beauty out of a lady, or handsomeness out of a man. Or reductionism can actually come in a way on how it can analyze how a grandmother became a grandmother right from a lady or from a young lady. That's what basically I understand from that. And these are, as I've said, are logic. These are actually logical tools of materialism. Now, in my second paragraph, if I can share my thinking, it says that now it will, of course, be a mistake to seek to infer from the foregoing that according to philosophical dialectical materialism, mind is, say brain, qualities are quantities. Energy is mass. Thus, locations will commit what are referred as categorical mistakes. There's no way quality will come out of quantity, but rather out of quantity, we can see quality. Quality is something that maybe we may not be able to touch, but quantity, we can say there are 10, 5, 2, 3, 5, like that. We can count. These are 6, maybe ladies, or these are 6 countries, but the qualities can only be derived from a quantity. So quantity, for this case, to my understanding, I'm told my line is coming up and again. Is that what is going on?
Yeah, your voice is coming and going. It's breaking up. It's not that as clear as it was before.
Okay, thank you for that. But now you can get me. Am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could hear you before, but it just wasn't clear. I don't know if it's just me or if other people are experiencing that as well.
No, I concur. There
Okay.
is something going up and down with your voice, my brother, but we can hear you. You can continue with your delivery, but be aware that the quality is not the same as where the voice is constant.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let me just proceed a bit as I'll be working on alternative quality of my audio. Now, what I was saying that in my second paragraph of my thinking in what you've read is that when it is said that it's a category mistake to derive qualities out of quantities or replacing qualities as quantities, it can all be like that. Because to my understanding, it says that out of quantities, as we had had before, we can get qualities. Not out of qualities, we can get quantities, because qualities are more of ideas or perceptions that you have. Somebody can say this is beautiful. Somebody can see the beauty as ugliness. Somebody can say this is too much. Somebody can say the too much is too less. Therefore, those ideas can only come out of a matter. Maybe there are 10 beautiful ladies. But you cannot say, you cannot drive the ladies out of beauty. You cannot say anything that is beauty is a lady or you cannot categorize that. So to my understanding, the second paragraph is actually bringing into concept that actually derivations or constructionism can only come from qualities to quantity, from quantities to qualities. And that's what I'm trying to understand from the second paragraph. I'll be able to share more as I move forward to the third paragraph as we move along. But I see Brother Kwame has also joined us. So, Brother Mr. P, do you have anything else to say as per now?
No, brother. No, nothing else to add at this point. No.
Okay, but how can we put this into African context? How can we construct African problems out of the reality? What is the primary matter for African problems here? And how do we describe Africa's situation? Or how can we construct our problems from matter? And how can we also construct our solution of unification as the purpose of this class? Where do we draw the point of our strength for unification? Because unification is actually what we envision. We cannot not touch the unification, but you can build the unification from the people we are as a people of Africa. You can build up that unity of continent. How can we see that? And how can we also apply the reductionism in this process on problems of Africa or the context of Africa? How can you explain what's going on in Africa in regards to constructionism or in lines with the reductionism? Who can try that probably? That can now bring us to practical part of this discussion. Brother Kwame, feel most welcome. You can also share your thinking. We have been trying to check, we've been trying these 3 paragraphs because some are short and it's a continuation of the concepts. So we are discussing extensively the paragraph from in constructionism, which also ties reductionism, and the paragraph from now and dialectical materialism. We are tying them and we are trying to actually analyze them.
Yeah, continue the analysis.
Sorry. You are sharing our thinking, sorry.
Continue the analysis. I'll join in ASAP.
Okay, thank you. So I'd ask a question to members in this class. How can we apply constructionism or reductionism to the problems of Africa or to our mission for unification of Africa?
I think that the first issue we have as Africans is we, and I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but regards constructionism, I don't think we actually recognize who we are, what we are, and what we have. So because we don't believe that we're capable, because we don't think that we have what we need, and we're always continually looking outside for what we want, not recognizing we have everything that we need to construct whatever we want. We've got everything. We've got the raw materials, we've got the land, we've got the space, we've got the sun, we've got the sea, we've got arable land, we've got the brains, we've got everything that we need to do whatever we want. But I don't think we recognize and are able to grasp what we have. So if you don't recognize what you have, you either do nothing or you look outside from where you are to look for what you want to get done. And I think that's one of the primary issues that we're dealing with as Africans. How it relates to that paragraph, I'm not quite sure. I was trying to relate it as best I could regarding constructionism and having the raw materials and being able to utilize what you have. But if you don't recognize what you have, you're not going to use it. So I hope that makes sense. What you know what I said.
Thank you for that. Of course, I will allow Coco to come in but maybe to tie it further, it will be what we need as a class and to the vision of Kwame Nkrumah. We need a liberated Africa, a united Africa, and a developed Africa. That's what we want to construct. What are the tools we have to construct that? Maybe. And that's the line we should be putting forth to. What are the tools we have to construct that what we need? Because the picture we want for the continent is a totally united continent, which is totally liberated and totally developed. Brother Coco, come in, please.
Thank you, brother. And thank you, brother P. Don't worry. You are right.
Okay.
You are right.
Thank you, brother.
You are starting to be uncertain about what you are farming here, or you are contributing. I mean, this class, like all the other classes I attend, we are encouraged to think. It's
Correct.
more about thinking and saying what you think, and not worrying that someone is going to judge you. All right? You can, and don't ever feel like it's a sin to get it wrong. It might not be the right thing which Nkuno was saying, but at least it's what you understand, and that's the most important.
Okay, thank you, brother. Thanks for that. Thanks.
So just to add on to what my brother said there, it's interesting. I was watching that video by, I think it's Mensa, our French counterpart, who are trying to do something really amazing, because they are looking into the root causes of why we are where we are. And it's really important, because you have them all there in one video. One of those things which they remarked on is that they didn't only take the slaves out of Africa, they also took the food products that they took to the States and to America and to all these other countries. I know that in my country, we grew up eating maize. Maize is a staple meat in Southern Africa, a staple meal in Southern Africa, and it's also in East Africa as ugali. It's ugali in East Africa, and Saza in Zimbabwe, all of these things. And I think it's also there in West Africa in all its forms. So from maize meal, they do lots and lots of derivatives. So maize meal in this case is the primary product. So what happens in Africa is that we are producing the raw material, and like oil. We have oil, but we do not produce fuel. So it's amazing. Countries like Angola, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, we produce oil in its raw form, and then we send it abroad, where they continue to do whatever they do to produce derivatives from that oil. So the way it has happened is neocolonialism is built like that. We continue to perpetuate the colonial system, but now the difference is that the colonial master is not here. And if we say, oh, we are under imperialism, they will say, no, it's all on you to blame, or it's your leaders who are to blame. But the fact is, it's a system which was derived from the time when they were here, and the education which they then gave our leaders is the same. And our leaders have continued to be part of that system because they were educated within that system and they believe in that system. That's what is important. And that's where all these derivatives are coming from. We are just producing all of these things in raw form and sending them abroad. They add the values and they send them back to us. And that way, we continue to be just the consumers. Whereas we have all of those things, as Mr. P has said, we have all of those things. But then again, here is the problem. We as Africans have been told how inferior we are. So we have to look up to our masters. We have to look up to the colonial masters who know everything, have brought lots of things here, including the Bible. There is that inferiority and superiority complex. So we can produce stuff. And even if we produce stuff, you don't have exporting them. We have to look somewhere else for stuff that are produced in different countries. That is where the problem is. We end up spending all of our money abroad, just chasing all of these other goods because we have been, how do I say, disempowered. And it's all there. We need to realize that matter is important, and from matter as a primary product come lots and lots of things. There are lots of other products. And if I bring it back again and talk about constructionism, let's take the case of democracy. Democracy is a system which we have inherited from the West in this form. Okay, there will be who say, okay, we did have democracy before in a different form. I think Brother Kwame said this democracy is a bastardized version. That's Brother Kwame's word. But in that case, you see a system which is a bit removed from how we as Africans lived or used to live, or reflects how we want to make things happen. So one of the ladies in the video I watched said something which was important there, in that it's a dictatorial system. We think it's a democratic system, but it's actually dictatorial, because every 5 years, every 6 years, or every 7 years, we go in and vote someone else. They come in, they undo everything else that someone had done before.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a choice. We just have to be spectators in that. It is how it is. It's more of a system which they have used to make sure they augment us to the Europe. We continue to be just the raw material source for Europe in that case. So this is where the constructionism comes, is what have we built as Africans? What is it in democracy that we can take and link back to our being as Africans? How can we use, what governance system can we use to reflect better what we want as Africans? It's just me. It's a brain dump at the moment, but this is the space, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
brother. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brother Coco, for that. We allow Sister Mayra also to share her thinking. But as usual, of course, my biggest key issue here we are driving at is constructionism and reductionism in these states. And the key direction we are moving is, what is the matter or the material well-being or the materialist position of the material wealth we have in order to construct a united Africa we want? Whatever we want to construct is a united, liberated, and developed Africa. Now, what are the matters we have in our hand? What are they? What are those matters we have in our hand? And what will it take for us to construct that Africa? Now, in terms of reductionism, let us see it from this angle. How can we actually go back to analyze that the problems Africa has today, like poverty and bad governance, can be traced back to the African material being or matter? Like, for example, the poor leadership we have today, the poverty we have in Africa today, can we link it back? Can we trace it back, analyze it? Where is it coming from? Because poverty is an idea, you cannot touch it. It's maybe the second level of a derivative from a primary being, a primary source. So what is the primary source we link to? The poverty state we have today. And what, in the other aspect, what is the primary material, the primary reality we have to rely on to construct a liberated and a united Africa? So kindly come in, Sister Mayra, or anybody else. Feel free to come in.
Thank you, brothers, for your contribution. So I agree with what has been said. Those are really, really good points. And so I don't have much to add, but I think because everything, has been kind of said. But I think we know that we have the raw materials, we have everything that it takes to build. So we have everything we need to build our nations. But Brother Pigeon, you said something. You said, what do we do with the matter that we have in our heart? I think what colonialism did, and what neocolonialism is doing now is even more than just plundering our material resources. I think what it did is really egregious because they even destroyed our spirituality, our sense of identity. So let's look at this as categories of following this text. Let's look at those as categories of materialism. Our identities were stripped, our spiritualities were stripped, our way of being and living were stripped. So now we don't even know who we are, which is something that Brother DJ touched on. We don't know who we are. We don't feel pride in who we are, and we've lost a lot of the communality that we used to have. You know, as Africans, we used to be very communal. You know, Ubuntu, what's yours is mine, and brother and sisterhood and brotherhood. So, what do we have? I think we need, in terms of the raw materials, those are there, but we also have to believe that we have the material in ourselves. Like I like that phrase, matter in our heart, that Brother Pigeon used. We need to remember that we have that matter in our heart, and that we can relearn something of our ways, and not as it used to, because that's impossible, but bring them to where we are now and reawaken the brotherhood and the sisterhood and our pride and our identities and our knowledges. Because I believe those categories of materialism also matter in reawakening our consciousness of who we are as Africans, so that we don't look outwards to be told who we are and what to do, but to do for us what is good for us and what we need for us. And I think one way of doing that, of getting back that matter, that memory of matter, because I believe it's still there, we just need to remember, is through education. I know in many countries, and in my country, my home country, history is not taught anymore, and there's a reason for that. Civics is not taught anymore, and there's a reason for that. And I shared a video on the farmers WhatsApp, where they want the US wants to reconstruct the education given to Palestinian children, so that they forget their colonialism, so that they forget everything that's done to them, you know, and that's really damaging. So I think we need to remember. That's what we need. We need memory. We need to do something to bring back our memories, because who we are is in our nature. It's just that at the moment it was disrupted, it was interrupted. But I believe that it can be reawakened, and one way of doing that is re-educating ourselves and reacquainting ourselves with our knowledges and our identities. Yeah, so I think that's one way. Because once something sparks in us, then we can start to look to each other and work towards unity and work towards what is good for us and not for the Western imperialist countries. Yeah, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you for that. I think I've gone either by breaking the rules of the engagement here, but as we say, as usual, we ask each member to share their thinking. Whatever we are reading today is on the screen. from the paragraph starting with in constructionalism, and we are trying to understand how we can relate constructionalism to African context and reductionalism also. You share your thinking in regards to what do you understand from that. Then we'll also request you as you share your thinking to also share your thinking, what do you understand from the second paragraph on what it talks about and probably the third paragraph. We type them together, but feel free to share your thinking in any of the paragraphs you feel, but it will be good to share your thinking in all those 3 paragraphs if you can. But now we've been concentrating too much on the first paragraph on constructionism and reductionism. As I've said before to members of Join Us Now, we have been running, some of us have missed the classes before, but we have arrived at somewhere where Nkrumah proposed and actually said that matter is not the sole reality, but rather a primary reality. Then he said anything else can be derived from the primary reality, anything else. And now we move ahead in our reading in the previous classes, where we arrive at the tenets of matter. And these were actually science and logics. Now, on science is where we came across this other, and on logics is where we came across these concepts of constructionism, reductionism, and nominalism. And Nkrumah is trying to expand them further. And that's what we are discussing today. So feel free to actually go through that paragraphs on the screen and be ready to share your thinking as you move along. And we request you to do so. I'll be saying in short sentence that Europe constructed themselves through our material or our matter, and they reduce us to where we are by stealing our matter, but they never stole all of it. So we can still construct ourselves to where we want to be through the same matter that is remaining or left for us. So let me hear what maybe Sister Marlene is having, and Anjola, the new members who have joined us, before I go to Coco and the JP. If you don't have anything to say, just say pass so that you can take time to understand what's going on. But Kelly, Anjola, or Marlene come through. Then maybe we'll go to Mr. and Coco. His brother Kwame has something is all coming.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Okay, so
Yeah.
I will talk of materialism.
Yep, we can hear you.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much. So I'll talk on dialectical materialism. So on the part of dialectical materialism for the African continent, I think one thing that matters here is the quality of our understanding at every single time that we find ourselves. It is very necessary to understand that theory and practical are 2 different aspects, and recognizing what quality is needed and what quantity we must give out at every situation is important, because we can have the whole energy and we will not have the right mass of people that we want to attend. We can have the right mass and we might not have the full energy to be able to perform the necessary operations that we need to do. And in the metaphysics world, I said it to be about theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge has a key influence in the decision making that we do, especially when we're giving accounts of where we find ourselves, and also understanding that human beings are different, but we should not allow our dialectical attitudes to go wrong, because each person has something to offer, and also when they are offering when they are offering the certain actions, you must also realize that you do not reduce what is needed, but you also understand that there's philosophy to every action that you are creating and also trying to achieve on the nature. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you so much, comrade. You raised some clear points here that are actually coming to my mind. We can have the brain, but not the right mind. We can have the quantities, but not the right qualities of people we need. We might have the qualities, but not also the right quantity. We might have the energy, but not the right mass. And we might have the mass, but not the right energy. I think it's something that is making some little sense. And I think members will also have to share their thinking in regards to that, how you expound that. It's very important that we share and hear what people say. Sister Marlene has said that she may not be able to speak because of her cold. Then I will go back to Brother Kwame. If you have something, you can come in, or I go back to Coco and DJ P, who had raised their hands before. Okay. Okay, seeing that Mr. Brother Kwame is silent a bit, then let me go to Brother Coco. Then I go to Mr. P. You addressed your hand before. Brother Coco, do you have something to say?
Yes. There was something which I remembered from your question when you said, what does Africa have? What does Africa have in this context that it can use to free itself? And I remember thinking again, the way it works. This is something which was defined by Noam Chomsky, but by many others, including those who have worked for the Bretton institutions, who said Africa actually produces what it doesn't consume, and it consumes what it doesn't produce. That is where the problem is, right? Then what that does is that we end up spending all of our money that we earn, little materials or materials we have, in buying expensive products. So that's why Zambia is in debt. That's why Ghana is in debt. That's why Ethiopia is the next one to default. Because we are busy not trading amongst ourselves, but put the little products that we have, the raw materials, sending them abroad. And for the little money, let's say 9 cents in a dollar, you remember the case of Niger. And then Niger, after selling its uranium for that little, it then goes back to France and imports everything that it needs. The food products come from France. Everything comes from France, as if Niger doesn't have its own soil. All right? That is where the problem is. We have our own matter, our own material, but we are not using them for our own people. We are not using them even for the sake of Africa. Everything goes to Europe first, and then back into Africa, having been added some value to it. And all of this is the quality of our products are very high themselves. But again, do we see that? Do we really realize that we have enough quality and we have enough quantity as well, which we can actually translate it into what is needed in Africa? Moving away from there, there is another issue here where we are talking about our products being used by other countries. Let's take the case of Switzerland versus Zambia. It's an interesting one because Switzerland is actually one of the biggest exporters of copper. So you tell me which mine does Switzerland have?
I don't have any copper mines.
But what we are doing in Zambia, we have sold our copper mines when copper plummeted. And one of those which picked up the copper mines was Glencore. And then on top of that, we continue to give them favorable taxes. We give them all kinds of benefits for them to come in and do some work. But after they do that, they have a way of cleverly engineering everything, financial engineering and declaring losses so that we in government, as Zambian government, we don't get our share back. Most of the copper it exports, it will export at a loss, and then its subsidiary somewhere will buy it at a higher price. So all of that money is hidden somewhere, not coming back to a Zambian in Zambia. It's all there. It's what Nkrumah was realizing, that all of these companies were here exploiting the Africans. So the question is, can we actually build our own? Can we have our own land cores? Why don't we have our own land cores? Producing the copper, using the copper, smelting the copper, building all these pipes here in Africa, and then selling the pipes, or actually using them for the infrastructure which we need to develop in Africa. All right. Thank you.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you. That's great.
Yes, Mr. P, can you go ahead because Mr. Myra come in? And I'd like us
Ye-
also to move the angle too. Actually, as we said, the Saturday class was how we can achieve unification of Africa. And my concept will be moving to. Now, in terms of the political unification into one continental government, how can we construct that? And what actually leads us to where we are today, where we have so many governments? How can we reduce this, apply reductionism to trace the genesis of where we are, and how can we achieve that political unification of Africa using the concept of constructionism? But Sister Mera, come in if Mr. P would be okay. Let's say sisters first. Sister Mera come in, then I go to say brother Mr. P because he has talked before.
Oh, okay. All right.
So to begin where Brother Coco finished, he said, do we have the ability to, I'm just paraphrasing, to use our materials? Absolutely, 100% we do. But in the third paragraph, dialectical materialism recognizes differences between mind and brain. The brains are there, we are brilliant, we have engineers, we have amazing talent. But the mindset, the other material called the mind, the mindset was destroyed. So I feel like we need to build the mind again, And like I said, I think one way of doing that is having discussions such as these and through education. Our education system still produces minds that uphold colonialism. So until the minds change, nothing much would change. The minds won't start thinking about Pan-Africanism or genuine, I think. Then Brother Pigeon asked, how do we use reductionism to think about the genesis of the problem? Again, what I like about constructionism and reductionism and minimalism is that it gives us a framework in which we can think about our problems. So the Brother Coco was talking about industrialization. We can think, where do we want to be? We want to build our industries. So what material primary components do we need? What do we need to break down? I think dismantling neocolonialism needs an approach of reductionism. How do we break down the influence of imperialism on our continents, on our continent? So I think within these three terms, we can build up and also tear down our problems. But I think the mind is a very important material that we have to think about. How do we decolonize the mind? Because the mind needs to be in the right place to even start something revolutionary and something new. Thank you.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah.
Yes,
Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Brother Pigeon, Brother Pigeon,
something to say?
Brother Pigeon, Brother Pigeon.
Christian, we can hear you.
No, I want to know if Brother Pigeon is hearing me.
Yeah, everyone can hear you.
No, hold on. I want to know if Brother Pigeon is hearing me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I've been trying to call you, Brother Pigeon, but you're not responding. So basically, I've been trying to speak, but I noticed my mic is not working properly. So I had to exit and come back. So it's not that I was silent, it's just that I think my mic wasn't working properly. Brother DJ, thank you very much for affirming that you can hear me. So I have been hearing and listening to what you've all been saying, and I think we need to distinguish between two things. We need to distinguish our own philosophical understanding of what we are reading, and then secondly, its application. And of course, the whole point of consensusism is that we apply what we are reading. That is correct. But in order to apply what we are reading, we need to also understand what it is we are reading. And I've missed a lot of the class, so I haven't kind of followed what has been discussed. And I've also not had time to watch all the videos that I've missed so far. So in that sense, my apologies. But from the little I have heard here so far, I noticed that there's a lot more of the application and some agonizing over our plight. But I think we need to come back to what it is we are reading. and speak to the text that we are reading. And so I want to ask a question, and it may have been dealt with already, but if answered, that makes me understand that we are on the right track. So the question is, why have we been pointed to science and logic? What is the reason for that? Because we are now looking at materialism. And in the context of materialism, these two big ideas of logic and science has been brought up. Why? That's my question. Anyone can answer it, please.
Okay, can I go? Can I answer?
Anyone can answer it.
Okay, sir. So I think from the aspect of science and logic, I think because of the tech world is changing, and the tech field has a lot of philosophy that is being built from different qualities and also understanding what commitment it has to make. But in the process of this, we must understand that both science and logic have different errors that has to do with reductionism. And if we are not able to understand the category and how the derivative is being put in place, we will not be able to really achieve the process and the goal that is required for us to be able to take it, especially on the scale of
Yeah, brother,
innovation.
your voice isn't very clear, you know. Your voice isn't very clear.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
That's better. Yeah.
So I was saying that for the scale, for the process of science and logic, I was saying that the tech scale of the world is changing today, and this process involves a lot of electrical development and also coming on different categories. And if we do not understand what commitment is being made at each level towards when it's being derived, we might be able to make mistakes, and we might also have an interlocutions error, which we will not be able to give a special account for whatever goal we want to achieve. And this might be theoretical or coming in a raw format. Thank you.
Yeah, well, brother Angela, thank you for that. My question is, so all you said is right, but my question is, why has the question of science and logic been placed on the table for us to look at in the context of materialism? That is my question.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Anyone can respond, sir.
Okay. I think that science and logic is key. Science and logic is very important purely because technology is based on science and logic purely. All right. So if we are to advance as a people, as a continent, okay, that means we have to employ science and logic. Who is going to construct our roads? Who's going to construct our dams? How are we going to get electricity, either from the sky, the sun, or from the dams, or from wherever? How are we going to do that? How are we going to make the best use, efficient use of the resources that we have? These are the things that depend upon science and logic. So I think science and logic is incredibly important, which comes round to the point I wanted to raise and add to our sister there. I think is it Myrna? Yeah. Let me just check. Yeah, Mira. Yeah, she made a couple of points that resonated with me, and one was I didn't realize that these Wazungus were doing this, but they are removing or attempting to remove the recent history from the Palestinians, from the Palestinians' education.
Hello,
Yeah. Hello? Chola, sorry, what did you want to say?
No, I think your line was breaking. I thought it was my network. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was just responding to Myra's point regarding them wanting to change the curriculum or or destroy the true history that the Palestinians have suffered over the last 70 years or whatever, right? And when I heard that, I said, hold on, that resonates with us as a people because we were not taught our history. Yeah, I did history at school, but for me, that was one of the most uninteresting subjects that I did at school. I learned nothing about our true history, nothing about our culture, and the children today know nothing. I know in the state of Florida in America, they are ruling out critical thinking and they do not want African history taught in schools in the state of Florida. So the same thing, the same tactic that our sister just mentioned that they're going to or looking to or are employing with the Palestinians, they have already done that number on us. Why are they doing it to the Palestinians? Because they've done it to us and it's worked. So that brings me around to the whole thing around education and the kind of education we have, right? Which is
but hold on, brother. My question was, why has science and logic been put on the table for us to look at in the context of materialism?
Okay,
I'm not asking about the application, and I agree there are a host of things that need sorting out. But I want us to focus first on the philosophical understanding of what it is our attention is being drawn to. As I said, I've listened, and so far there's been a lot of applying what we are reading to the real world, which is what we need ultimately. But let's come back to the central question, which is within materialism, that we have been introduced to. And let's remember why we have been introduced to materialism. Because most of us are not materialists. Most of us have come from the tradition of spirits and ghosts and prayers and mosques and
religionism,
religion, but more than religion, but that which is unseen. That is where most of us have come from, and most of us have not been introduced to the serious philosophy of materialism. It is the position of consensus that those Africans who are going to transform the continent cannot do so if they are idealists and believe that prayer is the way forward. They will not transform the continent. They have to be materialists. Now, within the context of materialists, then, we've reached a part in the book where science and logic has been placed on the table. My question is, why? Let's deal with that philosophical question before we start looking at education, industry, development, and all the other aspects of life.
Okay, brother.
Why is science and logic central to materialism? That is the question.
Does that have to do with the human existence?
I thought I answered your question, brother. To be honest.
Well, you said something, but I wasn't satisfied with your answer, basically.
Okay,
so I want to hear from others, and then because within us here, the answer is there. It's through sharing our thinking that we arrive at that.
Does this have to do with human existence?
Yeah, your voice, brother. Your voice isn't clear. You're not speaking clearly.
Does this have to do with human existence? Human existence as an answer.
It's a philosophical position. Our philosophical position, humanity is part of it. But remember, we are talking about the universe. This chapter starts from our universe. What is it? What is our universe? And what constitutes our universe? That is our starting point. Our starting point is not human beings. Our starting point is a universe in which we live. What is its nature?
Yeah, human beings are part of it, because if we're talking about materialism, we're talking about matter. We're talking about matter, we're talking about energy, we're talking about space, time. These things are all to do with materialism.
Yes. And so I'm saying that, yes, our humanity matters, and ultimately it's about that. But the philosophy we are looking at is a philosophy that is necessary to arm us for the work ahead. And its beginning, in terms of philosophy in retrospect, is the universe in which we live. What is our universe and what is it made of? Let's remember that is where we are coming from. And we've seen the idealist's answer, and now we are looking at the materialist answer to that question. Then in the course of that, you have been introduced to the two big ideas of science and logic. My question was, or is, why? And none of us is addressing that. And we are doing a lot of application.
Well, sorry, brother. I thought I did answer that, because I said advancing us as a people and as a country is based on technology. Technology is based on science and logic.
Yeah,
That's
brother,
what I said.
and I'm saying that is an application. It is not the philosophical question, an answer to the philosophical question. You are right. However, you are applying science.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You want a philosophical. You want it from a philosophical.
You want to understand philosophically, yes. Why is it? Where does science and logic fit into our philosophy? Of course, we have to apply it ultimately, but philosophically, within materialism, where does it fit in? Let's hear from others. Shireen, what do you think?
I dropped a message.
Marlene, what do you think?
Marlene is sick. She's just listening.
Oh, she's just listening. Shireen, what do you think?
Sorry, what was that? You're not very clear.
I'm unable to contribute.
Yeah, we're not hearing you properly. Shireen, we're not hearing you.
Exactly. This is the problem.
She said she's on a train. She's on task.
Oh, yeah, your reception's awful. Yeah,
so
we're not hearing you.
I'm listening in.
All right, Shireen, thank you. Brother Anjola, once again, what do you think?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, brother.
Okay, so I think this has to do with something related to subjectivity, and also understanding that people have different beliefs, and people have different expectations of what they need, and also their understanding of where human existence comes in terms of interaction.
Right. That's not the philosophical answer I am seeking. Brother Coco, what do you think?
Science and logic are the tools which are used in philosophy to understand philosophy itself and to answer the questions that philosophy asks. And those tools themselves have been spawned by philosophy.
Okay, hold on, Brother Coco. What is that question for which science and philosophy provides the two big tools? So we are on the right track now. What is that big question?
What is and how has what is has come about?
Very good. So the question, what is our materialist answer? So in other words, what do we materialists say is?
Sorry, say that again. What is what?
What do we materialists say is? What constitutes our universe? What is our universe?
Matter.
There are two answers. Sorry, you said matter.
Yeah.
So that is correct. So it's matter. Good. Now, matter, is it the sole reality or is it the primary reality?
Primary reality.
It's a primary, primary
Excellent.
reality.
Now, if it's a primary reality, is it the only reality in our universe?
Of course not.
Yes.
Of course not. So if it is not the only reality, because there are other realities, like mind, for instance, yeah? Now, those have to be explained in terms of what? Matter. So how do you explain it?
That's
The
where
way to explain it now is where science
Use-
and logic come in.
Yes.
is that
Okay?
where the quick bean is coming?
Yes.
Yeah, come in,
Science.
come in.
Science and logic.
Okay. Yes. I wanted to say that it is true that we cannot explain matter with ideas and spirits. The
No.
only thing that Nkrumah now brings in is how do we explain our material or matter in regards to science and logic that do not actually depend on spirit. And that's what is why it's coming as a tool to us. I think, to my thinking, is that logic and science are coming in to explain the matter that is
Correct.
the primary reality.
Yeah, which matter is it explaining? The sole reality of matter or the primary reality of matter?
They explain the primary reality of matter, how we can arrive to other derivatives.
So we need to understand this very critically. And as I said, this is what was missing in what I was hearing. And that is that here you are saying that matter is primary, which means that everything in our universe ultimately comes from matter. Now, if that is the case, how do you explain a mobile phone and how different it is from cooked rice? How do you explain a book which is so different from mind? You have to have a way to explain the different categories of matter, because whatever matter is ultimately, what we have in our universe are different categories of matter. And how did these categories of matter arise? And I wasn't here when you read it, but it is called what? Categorical conversion. Categorical conversion is the way in which one category of matter, you can call it water if you like, becomes steam, for instance. How one category of matter, which is, for example, coal, becomes locomotive power when it powers a steam engine, or when one category of matter called petrol becomes power to power either an aircraft or a car or a ship. Now, these are all categories of matter, and if you have to explain them, you have to have a scientific and logical basis to do that. So that is where science and logic come in. And the three elements of science that you have looked at, which are what? Constructionism, reductionism, and nominalism, are the three ways in which we can explain the different categories of matter and how they arise from the primary reality. So it's important that we understand this, understand what it is philosophically that we are looking at. And then when it comes to application, then we will see clearly what it is we are talking about. And I know you've already discussed constructionism, and Brother Pigeon has raised a question: how do we apply it? Yeah. But then there's also reductionism. The entire scientific project, yeah, the Western scientific project, as you know, is rooted in reductionism. But reductionism itself has limits, as you know. And then there is nominalism. So these three scientific tools, as it were, to summarize, their whole purpose is to explain how the different categories of matter arise from a primary reality. So I want us to understand that. And then logic also is the other tool that also explains how you can start from one category of matter and arrive at another category of matter. And in chapter 5 of our book, we will see how logic in precisely mathematical logic comes into play. So to summarize, philosophically, we have to be armed with the tools of science and logic for all the reasons all of you have mentioned. However, as I was saying, we need to understand where it fits into our philosophy. Which one? Materialism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Of course, you reminded me to go back to, if you can see my screen, of course, where you say the logic and science was proposed. And actually, Nkrumah goes ahead to say that the logic, it actually had problems of categorical conversion, and it contained nominalism, constructionism, and reductionism. But for philosophy's model of categorical conversion, it turned to science. I think that's very important.
Precisely. So that paragraph you've drawn out, this paragraph you've just gone back to, as I said, I missed it because I wasn't here. I was on holiday. I apologize for that. Not apologize for being on holiday, but not being able to join. That paragraph is like a summary of where things fit in. And as a consensus, we need to understand that. Let's return always to the central argument here. What is the argument? The argument is very simple. Africans, majority of Africans are not materialists. They're idealists. God, devil, demons, spirit, prayer, mosque, church, everything to do with spirituality, spiritism, anything that will take their mind away from their resources. Somehow that is what they've been brought up on. And we all understand why. Because the enemy doesn't want us to keep our mind on our material resources. So let us pray so that we don't have treasures on earth, where, as the Bible said, moth and rust do consume. But what should we do? Let us keep our treasures in heaven. In the meantime, the enemy has their treasures on earth, but we are busy keeping our treasures in heaven. I'm saying that this is, most Africans have been brought up on that, including the most educated Africans. Top physicists are confused. I use the word confused in that sense, because you have top physicists who are still talking about God, and then you know they are confused. When you hear top physicists talking about God, you know they are really confused.
Okay, as a continuation, a paragraph before this paragraph also says in the screen there that in the same way, if one says that matter is the primary category, then spirit must, to the extent that is recognized as a category, be a derivative category.
Precisely. So everything is derived from the primary reality. So yes, we as conscientists, we as philosophers, we as Pan-African philosophers must be able to explain all derived categories. So if you have a child who is not in school, we must be able to explain it. If we have a country that is poor, we must be able to explain it. If we have the fact that there is a village in our village somewhere, in our city somewhere, where there's no drinking water, we must be able to explain that derived category. Every derived category we must be able to explain. That is how we become masters and mistresses of the universe, of our universe as Africans.
Thank you. I want to move on a bit, and of course we have to explain through logics and science. It says again that in order that proposition about spirit should make sense, there must be matter. Secondly, even when proposition about spirit makes sense, in order that they should be true, certain proposition about matter need to be true.
Precisely. And these ideas we are reading are ideas of materialism, and they are very deep, and it requires, and as we are doing now, reading and not rushing, because sometimes we read and then we rush with the what we are reading, and as we all agree, we are not reading a textbook, we are not reading a storybook. It's not a reading club, it's a philosophical club, if you like. And our club here mirrors Nkrumah's own club at Flagstaff House, which was the house of the residence of the president at the time in Accra, where, like us here, he only had a few people. Not a lot of them in the club, and that is where they discuss philosophy. So what we are doing here is not new, and what we are doing here shouldn't surprise us that there are only a few of us. It shouldn't surprise us at all. That is what it was at that time. But yeah, so let's keep our mind on what it is we are reading. So we here are saying that in order to transform Africa, we need to understand materialism as as a philosophy, not materialism as it is used glibly, banally, and in a popular sense, where people say, "Well, you are too materialistic," or "I don't want to be materialistic." Not in that sense. We are talking here about the philosophical version, and that is why we say philosophical materialism to distinguish it from banal or popular materialism. And I return to my central point. Africans, most Africans, including the presidents, including men of science, men of letters, men of religion, women and of religion, women of letters, the most educated African, you find them in either the church or the mosque because they are confused. How are you going to transform the continent when you ascribe to a philosophy that affirms your inferiority and that affirms the fact that the universe is a hierarchy and that you are at the bottom of that hierarchy? How are you going to do that? So you need a combative ideology, an ideology that will enable you to be a combatant. And this is why, in a sense, Marxism has been a problem for a lot of people because it is a combative ideology. Yeah, Marxism. Because Marxism is saying that capitalism is evil. Let us overthrow it. But a lot of people are comfortable with capitalism, not in there. So they don't want to overthrow it. They want to sleep with it. They want to be businessmen and businesswomen. They want to be a big magnates and so on and so forth. They want to be somebody who is somebody in the capitalist world. And that's a problem. So I'm coming back to the same point again, which is that materialism requires us to explain the world. For you to change the world, you must first explain it. And a lot of us have talked about how we need to change it. Some of us have been agonized how, so much evil has been done to us, and some of us have been very extreme in the sense that the way in which we describe the problem, we forget that there were always pockets of resistance and that not all Africans succumbed to the imperialist nonsense. They were overwhelmed, but it doesn't mean that they gave up. They continued to fight. Jaja of Opobo. In our own time, the Nkrumahs, they fought. So, but sometimes when we are talking, sometimes we agonize and we are sorry for ourselves, how this has happened to us, and then we go over the problems all over again. Conservatism is about finding solutions. It's not about agonizing about our problems. We know what the problems are, and they are very many, but they all have the same root cause, and we know what the root cause is. Coming back to the central issue again, I am saying that in order to change the world, you have to understand it. And the way you have to understand it is not to understand it as God created the world and God made everything and God made sure that we are all where we are and God put the white one at the top. And then God said, that is not, if you approach it that way, you'll not change the world. Because if you are saying that is what how God did it already, you are defeated. How are you going to change what God has done? It means you're already defeated. Because if God has done it that way, how are you going to change it? Because God is God. So that way of looking at the world is not helpful. So I'm saying that for you to change the world, you must first of all understand. You must explain it, and the way to explain it is not for us to go down the idealist route of spirits and all that nonsense. Excuse my language, but to explain it using the tools of science and logic, because those are the two big tools of materialism, and with them, science has explained a lot. Not everything, but has explained a lot. And so if we have a problem, we need to understand using the tools of science and logic. as a category, understand the categories we are dealing with, look at the derived categories that are the problem for us, and then say, well, what is the category from which this derived category came from? Let us trace it using constructionism, reductionism, or nominalism. Or better still, let's even use logic. Look at the logical relationships, and arrive at the cause of that which we want to change. And then once we've explained it, then we change it. As Marx said, look, philosophers have explained the world. The point is to change it. So we want to change the world and make it a world in which we are happy in. At the moment, we are not happy with the world in which we live. We are very unhappy. Yeah. And so we want to change it. But we won't change it. We won't change it if we don't understand it, if we don't explain it very well. Because if you don't explain the problem and understand the problem, you cannot solve it.
You can't solve it. Yeah.
Yeah, you may think you are solving it, but you're actually not solving it because you don't understand it. I'll pause there, brother Pigeon. Thank you.
Let other members come in. Can you share your thinking in regards to what also that has come up as a recap of our class? Feel free to share your thinking before we end our class. We still have around 23 minutes. So can you raise your hand or just unmute yourself so that you share your thinking as well? I think thinking never stops. Thinking never ends. Thinking is a process that we have to engage ourselves continuously. So let me hear what other people have to think here. Unless you know or you don't have something to share for now. I'll be calling names. If you have something else to share, feel free to do so. Let me start with Mr. P, then I'll go to Mayra, then Coco, and then Angela. Mr. P?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Continuing where the brother left off. Sorry, is it I've forgotten his name. Christian. Yeah, where Christian left off. We've got a number of issues. We've got some huge problems. And the only way to solve these problems is to actually understand the problems. And our way of thinking that got us in there in the first place is not or cannot be used to provide those solutions, which is probably why we're going around and around in circles. Yeah. Which is what I wanted to say earlier on. This is all about mindset. The whole thing is about mindset. Yet we can use science and logic to describe and explain the universe and matter around us. But ultimately, until we can actually make a permanent shift in our mindset, we're going to continue in the same position that we're in. Nothing's going to move, nothing will change, and everything will just continue as it is. So mindset is really at the crux of everything, which is why philosophy is very important, which is why I'm here. Because there are things I don't know and I want to learn and understand, which is why I'm here. So very much, again, mindset is what is needed to move us from where we are. And I want to add something. Yesterday, I was watching a video on engineering feats and engineering projects in China. And I've never seen these kinds of projects, the bridges they're making, the tunnels they're building, and the work that they're doing and how they're doing it. Now, when you look back at China 50 years ago, they were the sick man of Asia. In the same way, we are sick in the sense that, and this is something I've never quite understood until I realized it's all about mindset, and that is we are the richest continent on the planet. We have got some of the smartest people on the planet. We're endowed with 9 series DNA. We are the smartest people on the planet? Why are we the poorest? So a lot of that, I think one of the biggest things was religion that came in, as you said, Christian, earlier, came in and it wiped our brains out. It wiped us out. And as Mario was saying earlier on, it's one thing being intelligent, and it's another thing having being smart or actually being clever, recognizing, seeing what you have and utilizing what you have for not just yourself, but for the betterment of your people and your country or countries or continent. So for me, the whole thing, the bottom line is mindset, mindset, mindset matters. And I will leave it there for now. That's my contribution or comment.
Okay.
Yeah, can I come in there? I think
Sure.
I think the brother has touched on one of the two big orientations of consensusism. And the first one of them is what Nkrumah called the power of ideology. And the second one is the determining power of circumstances. These two big things, these two big orientations, at all times should be in front of us. And I think what the brother DJ, is it brother DJ? Yeah, whatever
Mr. P, yeah.
Mr. P has done is to draw our attention to one of the two big ideas that that consensusism seeks to bring to our attention, and that is that the brother calls it mindset, but Nkrumah calls it the power of ideology. And listen to brother PJ, it's the same thing. He's saying the same thing, and that is that if you want to transform the world, your ideology matters, which he's saying is mindset. The other one is your material circumstances, and that's the other big one, which we also must bear in mind. So I just thought I'll make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Brother Coco? Brother Coco, can you come in, please?
Thank you, brother. I feel overwhelmed because, as Mr. P has said, we have so much in terms of brains in Africa. And this is the point Sister Maya was saying, that there is a difference between brains and mindset.
Mm.
And the problem is, I've seen this around lots and lots of groups that we are in. You find people who are really, really super brains, but they are just not glued on what is happening, or they think they have an idea of what is happening, but when you think carefully about it, it's just not it. So the video I was watching of Dr. Arikana, Peter Obi, and Professor Lumumba.
And Lumumba, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was an interesting sort of difference of opinion between Dr. Arikana and Peter Obi, where Dr. Arikana was saying the most dangerous African is a colonized African, especially an educated one.
Mm.
And Peter Obi said, I see that, but I think the biggest problem is incompetent leadership. But if you look at that again carefully, it comes back to education that we have had.
Correct.
And that education, it continues to spew out the incompetent leaders we have. It will continue being self-fulfilling. We will continue being like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's round and round. So right now we'll continue colonizing ourselves. I have to repeat it again. I'll continue to repeat it again until someone gets it.
Mm-hmm.
They are not here, but because we have that system, which Brother Kwame also said, people like to sleep with capitalism. People aspire to be the big name, the rich, the magnates. We think capitalism is going to produce all of that. And that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in. The West cathode system, we expect it to address wealth poverty. We expect it to address the African problems which we have. Really? We need to think carefully. And I think this is not agonizing Brother Kwame. It's being realistic. It's actually seeing the wood for the trees here. That we Africans, we have taken systems that don't work for us because they belong to someone who was superior to us. And we think they will work for us. The Africans can solve their problems. And last, before I go, is that knowledge and ideas are not the same thing.
Correct.
You can have all the knowledge you want in the world, but if you can't use that knowledge to transform it into ideas that are practical, then it's no use, is it? It's no use.
Yeah. But Brother Coco, I'm hearing you, but I'm asking myself, when you say that is superior to us, I mean, what do you really mean? Because no human being, as human beings, can be superior to another human being. All human beings are equal. Yeah.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that.
Sorry?
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I'm making a philosophical point. Philosophically, what I'm saying is philosophically, all human beings are the same. And Brother Mr. P, you will learn this in our class. And the reason philosophically is that all human beings come from the same matter. It doesn't mean that we all will have the same shoe size, or that we all have the same type of hair, or that we all have the same structure of nose. It doesn't mean that. However, what it means is that the matter from which all legs, feet, nose are derived from are the same. It's all carbon-based. We all come from the same matter. And therefore, in that sense, all human beings are equal. A white child born to a Caucasian parents is the same in terms of matter, by which we mean the material constituents of who they are. It's the same as a black child born in my village. There is no scientific difference between them as a matter. However, it is true that a child born in a royal family like the English royal family, as we have today, that boy who is going to be king after his father William, there is no doubt that he has access to more resources than a baby of similar age born in a village somewhere in Cameroon. Of course, there are differences in access to resources, which then impacts the child. And that is where the force of material circumstances come in. However, let us be clear philosophically here, brothers and sisters. Philosophically, all human beings are equal. There is no superior and inferior human being. And so, Brother Coco, feel free to come in and explain. So when you are talking and you are talking about, and they came and they were superior to us, I have difficulty with that philosophically. If you go back in history, when we were the philosophers and the scientists, and we were the geometers and so on, and the Greeks who, remember, the Greeks themselves says we civilized them. Yeah, they said they didn't know how to cook food.
Yeah, they came to learn from us. Yeah.
Yeah, they said they didn't know how to cook food and so on. They didn't know how to do anything until Africans arrived on the Greek islands and civilized them. This is the Greeks themselves saying so. And it's the same Greeks who also said that it is Africans who taught them geometry and so on, mathematics. Now, Now, so if you go back in history, we have a situation where we had a knowledge and so on, and then we educated and trained other people, right? Now, it didn't mean that we were superior to them. It's just that they were cut off on islands and they lost this knowledge, and so we taught them. So we had a situation where philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, and so on all came back to Africa. They came to Africa to study. They came here, we taught them our knowledge, we taught them everything. Yeah, they took that knowledge away. Incidentally, our own priests did not open schools and teach the Africans. They didn't do that, did they? So all this knowledge that the West has, where has it come from? It's come from us. So I'm just a bit, shall I say, I'd like to encourage us to begin to look at things more philosophically in line with materialism that says that all human beings are equal. We all come from the same matter. There is no inferior person, superior person. Of course, people have access to more resources. It doesn't mean they are superior to you. I hope, Brother Coco, that my my interjection there is acceptable to you.
Let me try to explain myself, because that's
Please
what
do.
I tried to do.
Please do. Thank you.
Where I used it was in sarcasm.
No, brother, be careful with sarcasm, yeah, because remember these videos are being recorded for the education of our people, yeah. So let's be careful with sarcasm, yeah.
So you're not very clear, Coco. Your voice isn't very
Go
clear,
on, brother
Coco.
Am I not? So give me a second. This one. Do you hear me better now?
Not really, but we can kind of hear you, but it's not very clear. It's a bit muffled.
Let me do this.
Do you guys hear me now?
Much better. Much better. Much better. Beautiful.
Thank you. So there is, unfortunately, a relationship now between the African and the European, and that's a relationship of a colonizer and a master. And again, because they came in and gave us a Christian education, a Christian religion, which is very much steeped in white supremacy. Everything to do with Christianity has whiteness in it. And then the African ended up looking up to the white man. There is that element which unfortunately has inhibited the African. Not that there is a difference between the African, the European, the Asian, or any other human being. We know very well that's what Pan-Africanism is about. There is only one human race. I know that, and all of you know that, except people maybe who are new here, but that is what we know. It's a fact. But capitalism, imperialism, and neo-colonialism itself, they thrive on that dichotomy of supremacy or superiority or inferiority complex. That is what I try to say in those few words that I used. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but that's not how I heard it when you said it. It sounded as if you were saying that there was a superior race and an inferior race. But anyway, thanks for the
clarification. Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
We are having 5 minutes to go.
Brother Pigeon, the time is 5 to 9.
Yes, we are having 5 minutes to go. And I feel that we should be coming towards the end of this discussion today and this class, of course. And I'd like to make just some few points, but let me know if there's anybody who is feeling to be locked out. We can give you 1 to 2 minutes before we come towards the end of this. Is there anybody who feel like they have something burning they have to share with us in a minute or two?
But make sure the meeting finishes at 9. Okay, Brother Pigeon? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. It seems that people are either a bit satisfied, but at the end of the day, I will assume that we have at least built our thinking, because it has been like we every day learn something. We every day expound on our thinking. We every day feel somehow better. And I believe together we'll achieve that or attain that consciousness that is necessary enough in order to liberate the continent. As they said in the beginning, there was the word was with God and whatever. We believe that in the beginning there was matter, and that everything that was actually talked of came from matter. And this is a very important position that actually I'm finding it to my thinking making sense to me. That we don't actually refute the existence of any other thing, but we actually take the position that those other things are derivatives from a primary reality. And that will actually change the shift and actually reduce the conflict. I know whatever is being talked about religion, I'll be covering this tomorrow on Saturday when I'll be talking of the doctrine of discovery. It takes a lot of those religion things and concepts. And actually, at the end of the day, you realize that it was a struggle for our matter. Our matter. It was a struggle for our material being or material wealth as a continent. The scramble and everything else was for our material being. And either salvation or missionary and everything else was just a tool to reach out to us. And therefore, I find it very important when we have to refer to logic and science, because these are not theoretical things. They're practical tools that we can use to practically liberate and decolonize Africa. Because theoretical aspects and ideas cannot actually continue liberating us. We've had them for long. And those who actually exploited have never used or still not using those theoretical tools. But unfortunately, we are using the same theoretical tools today, thinking that we are going to liberate ourselves. To the writings of those who say how Europe underdeveloped Africa, they'll realize that it's not about how they underdevelop Africa through spirit, but by taking out their resources. And therefore, fellow Pan-Africans, let's continue this conversation. And I think every day I learn a new term. I get to be a bit better. I'm a learner also, as it's seen. And I thank Brother Kwame for coming in today, because actually you've taken us back to the genesis of logic and science and why we need it. And basically, we'll continue with this discussion as we move along. And we've said, don't get tired of this, because you only get tired when you're so conscious enough to liberate Africa. And if you have not been able to do so, then you're still in the process to learn in order to do so. So thank you very much, comrades, for attending today. And it's my actually hope and wish that no matter how many we are, we will continue to learn this conscious enough. That's what it is. Brother, coming back to you.
Now you said it all, brother Pigeon. Yeah, I'm pleased to be back. In effect, I was on a 2 weeks holiday, but I'm happy to be back and to be part of the class. Thank you all for continue to hold the fort. We might have to do a review, an annual review of where we've come from and where we are now. We might probably do it next week. I don't know, Brother Pigeon, and we'll discuss it. Because it's out of the review that we came up with the second class, which on the Saturdays. So we need to review how effective that is and how effective the Thursdays are and what we need to change, what we need to keep. So Brother Pigeon will let us all know in advance when we do the review. But let's do it in the month of January before the year grows. So that's it from me. There will be a class on Saturday. Please join us so that we continue that conversation. And then I'll share with you what I found on the ground in Africa when I was there. Thank you. The time is now 9 o'clock. So this